We are on to our discussion today. Today's program is on the Greater Madison Downtown Economic Investment Strategy. We have a panel discussion, but we're going to begin with a presentation by Jay Renkins from MIG to give you sort of a baseline as what's going to happen. So here is our panel today. We are so thankful to have the mayor, Satya Rhodes Conway with the City of Madison, Megan Tuttle, Director of City of Madison's Planning Division, Jay Rankins, Principal, Chief Practice Officer, and Director of Firm-Wide Planning and Design Services with MIG, who is leading the consulting initiative for us, and Emily DeVore, Director of Placemaking and Economic Development with DMI and Destination Madison. So let's welcome them all to the stage. So as I mentioned, to begin the discussion, we're going to hear from Jay Rankins first with MIG. Jay got in at 10:30 last night, right in the middle of the thunderstorm. But which airport did you use? That's right, Dane County Regional Airport.
Heck yeah. Best airport on the planet. Yes. All right. So some of you may already know this because I know a few faces in the room, but I grew up in Wisconsin. And my family visited Madison since I can remember. We'd make the drive down from Appleton and spend nearly all of our time in downtown. I ended up doing my undergrad at University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, but many of my high school classmates actually attended UW, so I'd come down and visit on the weekends and just fell in love with the place over and over again. Fast forward 25 years, and I'm now the Chief Practice Officer and Firm-Wide Director of Planning and Design for MIG, a multidisciplinary firm I'll kind of tell you a little bit more about a little later. And one of our specialty project types includes downtowns. So after working in dozens and dozens of downtowns across the country, I can confirm that downtown Madison is truly unique with its geography on the isthmus, its scale, its connection to the university and the surrounding neighborhoods, its largely local businesses and property ownership, and the capital at its center. And this was made possible by great planning that leveraged Madison's strengths and planned for opportunities and challenges. The most recent of those plans are the 2012 Downtown Plan and the 2022 DMI Strategic Plan. The Downtown Plan has provided strong guidance as downtown has continued to see reinvestment and new development over the last 13 years. But a lot has changed since that plan was adopted. In the DMI Strategic Plan, which MIG and myself were involved in creating, we identified the need to strengthen and diversify the economic drivers in downtown, build even stronger public-private connections and partnerships, and update the downtown plan to respond to and integrate a whole host of changes that are impacting our communities and especially our downtowns. With my limited time, I won't go into all the changes. A lot of those are marked by 2020, the events sort of afterwards. But there was a lot of things and trends leading into that as well. But they left a significant impact on downtowns, and it's been most notable, I would say, in the mix of uses and the proportion of uses that fill our blocks, our buildings, and our open spaces. Most downtowns across the country are figuring out how to pivot and face huge obstacles. In some cases, the public sector is way out in front, and the private sector is scrambling to figure out how to respond. In other cases, private property owners are ready to act, and cities are still working off of a playbook that assumes office is still the main driver in our downtowns. They're not asking key important questions like what industries still benefit from a downtown presence? How can we diversify and what segments can we attract with our unique assets? How do we best leverage our arts and our cultural assets? How much retail can we support? How do we activate the ground floors of other blocks in areas that don't have retail? What is the potential fiscal impact of various private investments in downtown? And how do we maximize opportunities for downtown to best reflect the full diversity of this community? I'm excited to let you know that Madison is coming together to answer these questions and more in what we're calling the Greater Downtown Economic Investment Strategy. There's a task list here on the left, and I think what I want to call out is the strategy framework, the catalytic opportunities, and the action plan. The effort is applying an economic lens, but still will be place-based, and it's intentionally being called a strategy instead of a study because we will be identifying quick wins and a host of other actions for immediate and short-term action, even for those recommendations that may take longer to fully realize. The right side of this diagram summarizes the key deliverables that will be created as part of the economic investment strategy. That includes an assessment of different types of development, different land uses, looking at housing, looking at commercial, at retail, at a variety of sectors that exist today in downtown Madison and the greater Madison region, as well as that we may be able to attract. Looking at hospitality, looking at entertainment, tourism, arts, and culture. Key pieces of this include three major strategy components: an economic strategy that will, in fact, sort of set the stage, provide a foundation for work to come. It'll build on the citywide economic development strategy that is being developed currently. A second is looking at the governance structure, governance and management. So how do we work together? How do we collaborate? How do we continue to manage this great place to be successful moving forward? And then really importantly, and I know this question comes up in all of the work that we do, how are we going to fund this? How are we going to finance this? Thinking about private sector investment, thinking about public investment, and how we might inform the downtown plan update, as well as partnerships. Most of you are probably familiar with the city's area planning effort. The boundaries are depicted here in blue. And we had a lot of conversations, folks on the stage here included, about how the economic investment strategy should dovetail with the downtown plan update, no matter when that would actually happen. While it was tempting to use the same boundary for downtown, we've ultimately landed on this red boundary for the greater downtown area. You can see it covers the downtown area plan geography in its entirety, but also includes pieces of three additional plan areas immediately adjacent to it. For a number of reasons related to economics, connectivity, inclusivity, we're excited to include this broader geography and a broader audience of stakeholders and the community into discussions about the future of downtown. That engagement, that dialogue, the discourse that will occur will be coordinated between the Greater Downtown Economic Investment Strategy and an update to the downtown plan, both starting this year, with the Greater Downtown Economic Investment Strategy starting basically next week, and then the downtown plan update, all things aligning, would start in the fall. We would have coordinated efforts on analysis, so we really leverage both efforts to the greatest degree possible, plug into each, both in terms of infrastructure investment, some of the land use sort of considerations that come from an economic perspective that obviously need to be implemented by the downtown plan that the city will be leading. And then really importantly, a shared vision and big moves. So what are those really big moves? We've worked on plans before and for downtowns, economic investment strategies, vision plans, strategic plans, downtown master plans. And you lose the forest for the trees sometimes. You dive into the specific recommendations, specific interventions. And what we want to do is make sure that we have a cohesive vision that everyone can rally around, can get behind, and that is supported by a handful of big moves. MIG is leading this team. It's a firm that I have been with for about 20 years now. But we're joined by three fantastic partners. One is NAO Partners Incorporated. They're based in St. Paul, Minnesota. They focus on economics and engagement, Black-owned firm, all Black employees at this point, but have worked in a variety of settings, variety of contexts, and we've enjoyed working with them on several geographies already. We're actually just about to embark on a retail strategy for Minneapolis, retail node strategy. We're working in Arlington, Texas with them as well, and just really enjoyed our relationship with them and excited what they can bring to the table. Vanderwall and Associates, I think probably folks here know them best for being kind of soup to nuts, from vision all the way through implementation, that ability to get things done. And we're really excited to incorporate them into this team as well with their local knowledge, the passion and love they have for this place. And we'll be integrating them throughout, particularly on thinking about sort of those big moves and catalytic projects. And then Equity by Design is, I think, hopefully everyone in the room is aware of them, but fantastic engagement firm, strategy firm that we'll be coordinating with as well, and coordinating that engagement throughout. Really quickly on MIG before I wrap up, and then we'll turn it to the panel discussion. We are a multidisciplinary firm, as I mentioned. We have a team of proven implementation experts. We're really focused, like Vanderwall actually, sort of taking things from vision through implementation, have really built the firm out over 4 decades now to do so. We have as mentioned, 4 decades. We have 13 offices, 6 distinct practice areas, and we can bring that to bear through this economic-led strategy while still integrating planning, urban design, other needs as necessary. And I'm actually based in our New York office, which is relatively new, and really focused on this nexus of planning, economic development, and implementation. Our firm also has experience in downtowns, as I mentioned. We've been working in the downtown space for about 40 years since our inception. We're very active in International Downtown Association. We've worked in Madison previously, and are really excited to continue this work with the economic investment strategy. I want to read all of those. We can wrap this up, but I think the most important part here is that we want to create a plan that is not a study that's setting us up for some things that we might kind of be looking towards 15 years from now, 20 years from now. We want to make sure that we're creating quick wins, we're creating actions, we're creating a plan or a strategy that informs the update to the plan so that we really set Madison up for success for the next 10, 20, 30 years, but with short-term immediate change. And that is all for now. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Jay, for setting the frame for what we're going to be talking about today. And again, welcome to Megan Tuttle, Satya Rhodes Conway, Emily DeVore, and Jay Renkin, who are on our panel today to discuss more about the Greater Downtown Madison Economic Investment Strategy. Sorry, I've been calling it the strategic plan for years, and I continue to get the name not quite right, but there we go. All right. This is a very important document. It's really a first of its kind public-private partnership here in Madison. So first question I have, and we'll begin with the mayor, is what are the long-term economic and social benefits to a coordinated public-private process between the Greater Downtown Economic Investment Strategy and the city's planned downtown plan update? And why is the process so valuable for the downtown region?
Thanks, Jason. And let me start just by saying thank you to DMI both for this event, but also for your great partnership in this work. And of course, also to the BID and to Destination Madison and frankly to all of you, because if you're here, you care about downtown, and that means that you are a key part of this work. More on that in a minute. I think, so you asked about what are the big benefits here, and I think there are many. I would start by just establishing that in my view, Madison has one of, if not the best downtowns in the country. And I think we really proved that coming out of the pandemic. And I think any of us who travel and spend time in other downtowns know that our downtown came back bigger and better and quicker than many downtowns post-pandemic. They're catching up with us now, and that's great. I'm happy for them. But I think we really had a jump start. That doesn't mean that we have done everything that we need to do or that we can rest on any laurels. And those of you who have been paying attention for the past 6 years know that I have a bias towards action as opposed to planning. So I think one of the things that's so important about this process is exactly that, that yes, we are doing planning. Yes, we will do a downtown plan, and Megan will talk about that. Yes, we will have an economic strategy, both at the city level and specific to downtown. But much more importantly, in my view, is that we are going to not wait. We are going to take action even before those things are done. And then we are going to establish the more actions that we need to take through this process. The other thing that I think is really important is sort of inherent in the structure of this is that it's a partnership, right? Downtown is important to our whole city. It's important to all of you. It's important to our economic engine, which, let me just remind you all again, is in fact the economic engine of the state of Wisconsin. So it's important that this be something that we're doing together, right? It's not a thing that the city is doing, although we certainly are going to be part of it and we're going to be continuing to invest in downtown. It's not a thing that DMI is doing alone. It is a thing that we are all doing together. And hopefully part of what this process can do is parse out what are the things that government is best equipped to do and let us do those things, right? and what are the things that the private sector is best equipped to do, and let the private sector do those things. And Jason and I met yesterday. We, I think, came up with we talked through a number of things that the city is best poised to do and will do, and a number of things that if I said, oh, you should do this or we should do this, you would all look at me like I was crazy. But if Jason says it, you might actually do it.
I don't know about that.
So strategy, right? It's not just the what, but also the how and the who. So I think that's really important. And just one other thing that I think, just looking at the room this morning, really comes to mind. Just look at the room. There's some people missing. There's parts of our community that aren't here this morning. And one of the things that we can and must do is be really intentional about continuing to insist that downtown Madison is for everyone. And that means that we need a better mix of businesses, and that we need to be serving both the people who live downtown, who increasingly there's more and more and more people who are living downtown, and we need to be serving those folks right downtown. We also need to be serving our visitors, whether they come from near or far, and we need to make sure that our whole community feels welcome downtown. And some of that is business mix, and some of that is attitude, and some of that is actually extending the invitation, some of that is programming, but it's something that I hope that we will get out of this process as well. And it's part of why I'm so glad that Equity by Design is involved, because I know that they will bring to us the information about who's not here and what would they like to see downtown, in addition to who is here and what would we all like to see downtown, so that we can try and do both.
I just want to publicly say a huge thank you to the mayor personally. We've been on this journey now for probably a year and a half, 2 years to set this day up and to get this plan happening. And the city has backed this from day one and has been an integral part of it and really helped design this work. And that's what I want to get to. Next question is for Jay, about other cities that you see across the country that have used this public-private partnership for their downtown planning. And then also sort of a sub-question to that is, what are successful outcomes that you've seen from those downtowns and similar projects from these types of plans?
Yeah. So I'll just hit a couple. So I do think it's rare, first of all, I'll put that out there. I think there's a lot of instances where the municipality, and we've worked on both actually. The municipality is leading the effort, and it's really focused on, well, it includes what the city and the mayor alluded to, where the city has its power, right? So where capital investments being made or prioritized, where the zoning changing to match the future land use vision, although there are other development standards, regulations that could change to create the framework for what can happen in the downtown space. And then there's economic investment strategies. There are often bid or partnership downtown organization-led efforts that are focused more on private development opportunities, catalytic sites. But there's only a handful of places that have really sort of put those all together, which I think is necessary to affect real change. Typically, you're sort of tiptoeing into one area or the other versus actually having coordinated efforts between the parties that are going to be the implementers. And so Charlotte, North Carolina comes to mind as one example where these efforts have been coordinated over the years. And there's been retail strategy, center city vision plan, as well as a capital investment strategy, sort of all concurrently run in Charlotte. They did that for the 2020 vision plan, as well as the 2040 vision plan, which was recently completed a few years later. And the area, I think if you've been to Charlotte, they call their downtown Uptown, which is a little odd. But
we could do a name change. Greater Uptown Association. It doesn't quite.
No, I don't think. Let's stick with downtown.
Yeah. All right, first work has been done. We're staying with downtown.
Check. So there's 4 wards in Uptown Charlotte, and the third ward was had the Bank of America Stadium where the Panthers play, and a bunch of service parking lots around it. And it took a really large coordinated effort with the public and private sector. And by private sector, there was the Center City Partner Organization, kind of the equivalent of DMI, that was sort of leading the effort on the private side, but they were bringing all different people to the table and having this large community engagement process, whereby, it wasn't just about, who's paying their dues or who, typically shows up to the public meetings.
You should
Uh,
pay your dues.
and you should pay dues. But it's about co-creation, right? Like with the community and a broad spectrum of the community. And so now that is actually the most vibrant spot in Uptown Charlotte. Romare Bearden Park is this beautiful park that was created. They brought a minor league ballpark, mixed use development with residential, a little bit of new office from Duke Energy, great ground floor experience. And I think it's just one of the unique examples of where the power of the private and public sectors coming together can affect really real change. And that was a pretty short amount of time. The vision for that was set in 2009 when the plan was adopted and largely realized by 2015, 2016. They're now sort of, they're dealing with activation and things like that. And they're now grappling with, they're largely office focused in their downtown, even with that residential surge, it's still predominantly office. And so they're trying to figure out what is that next wave of economic development and investment, ranging from small businesses all the way up to large industry and large corporations. Another quick example, I'll make this one faster, is Dallas. So we did their last 2 downtown plans as well. And there's a regulatory plan for downtown, and then there's the Dallas Forward is the name of the downtown plan. I didn't name it. I wish it had a little more descriptive name, but regardless, it was a similar effort whereby, not necessarily people staying in their lane per se, but sort of playing to their strengths and pointing in the same direction. And I think that's what we want to do and need to do with this effort.
Yeah, Emily, next question for you is about sort of the governance and why the governance model is important for our work moving forward here.
Yeah, I think to everyone's point, I think public and private working together we're excited about how impactful this is going to be. And one of the cool things about this process is that we're going to be coming together, utilizing the strengths of both public and private to set a shared foundation of analyses and data and community input that we're all going to be using. And then we'll take that foundation and we will collaboratively come up with ideas to solve challenges and harness opportunities that we see for the future. And I think by coming together to do that and then creating that opportunity for community input and public-private to work from that foundation, we're going to have more feasible, actionable strategies. And some of those strategies we expect will be things that the public and private will both have to tackle. And so the governance structure and the funding structure that are going to come out of the Greater Downtown Economic Investment Strategy are going to be incredibly beneficial to our ability to co-tackle these goals throughout the future and understand where, to the mayor's point, our strengths lie and how we make sure we can achieve the best downtown for everyone, for residents, businesses, visitors, all the other stakeholders.
Megan, I want to touch on the downtown plan part of this, right? This is a relatively unique model compared to the other, is it 12 area plans throughout the city? Talk about why this is important for downtown, why it's unique.
I think in speaking to that, is this working? I think this one's working better. There we go. In speaking to how this is a bit unique, I'll reiterate some of what the mayor, Emily, and Jay have said in that as we approach planning for downtown, as we look to update that 2012 vision for downtown from our downtown plan, there are a lot of opportunities and some challenges that downtown is experiencing that will really benefit from a holistic look from both sides of the issues. I think in our work for long-range planning, I personally am an optimist and I'm a planner at my core. So I like to think that plans are very inspirational. And we do a lot of work to try to recognize that the city is not going to implement these plans on our own. We try through engagement and conversations and plan development to recognize the full range of people that will be involved in carrying that vision forward. And we recognize that the tools that we have available to us can be limited in terms of being able to realize that. We don't control property. We don't develop that property. We don't own the storefronts. We don't recruit the businesses to fill them. We're not the event programmers. We can play a role in setting that vision for the kind of places that we want to make in downtown. And then we need that vision to inspire everyone to action to help us implement it. And so I think this is unique in that we're sort of front loading that expectation that we all have a role to play in the implementation as we're updating the downtown plan. And I think will set us up for some success. Ultimately, these plans, the economic impact strategy and the city's downtown plan, are unique tools. You know, they're being created and they will be adopted for different reasons. But when we zoom out and look at the Venn diagrams of what kinds of issues we're going to be talking about, what kinds of strategies we're going to be talking about, who needs to be involved in those conversations in order to actually leverage those strengths and make these things happen, the centers of those Venn diagrams are very large. And so I think the diagram that Jay showed about how we'll be coordinated, not only in thinking about the vision for the future of downtown, but in the actual work to create these plans, is something that will ultimately help us realize what we're all going to be doing in the future, make sure that that long-term vision and the short and mid-term strategies that we're going to be using to address the things that are happening in downtown are all pointing in the same direction, as Jay said. And then ultimately helps us to be able to talk to each other about what we're each responsible for. And I think importantly, talk to other people in the community about what we're each going to be responsible for to help set the expectation for who and when we can see certain things come out of this work.
Speaking of certain things, what are those actual tangible benefits, the specific benefits like job creation, infrastructure? We've got projects like the Lakeway Partners, and Jamie is here. What can we see that will help benefit the businesses, the residents, and the visitors of downtown? Mayor, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I think there's maybe too many for me to list all of them, but a couple of things jump to mind for me. And I guess the way that I would frame it is there is work that we are doing now, that the city is doing now, the DMI is doing now, that the BID is doing now, Destination Madison is doing now, and that this process will build on. And I just want to say again that, like, in my mind, and Jason knows this because I have said it to him many, many times, this is not a process where we are going to engage in a year-long planning thing, and then there's going to be a report at the end of it, and then if we're lucky, maybe a few of the things in the report will happen. No, this is an action process, right? This is we are doing some things now, and when I say we, I mean we, all of us, are doing some things now, and then we are going to learn more, and then we're going to do some more things. Right? So it's a very active process in my mind. So that said, I expect that we will see more housing and perhaps a higher diversity of types of housing downtown. Because we know people want to live here, we know we need housing in our community, and there's a proposal that will be before the City Council shortly that would make it easier to produce missing middle housing downtown. I think that's one benefit. I think we're also going to see infrastructure investment. So right now we are considering my executive capital budget. It'll be announced in a month or so. One of the items that we're looking at is what work needs to be done specifically on State Street, but also in other projects relevant to that larger downtown area. So one thing that you will see, I think, is a series of investments in downtown with respect to street work and sidewalks. I don't think this is really a reveal for anyone, but we're looking at on the 400 through 600 block of State, removing curbs so that as we redo the sidewalks so that we have more of a natural pedestrian mall through that area. And anyway, so infrastructure investments, housing. I think we're also as in the process of the city's economic development strategy, we're looking at really refining and targeting our economic development investments. So things like our facade grants and our tenant improvement grants, really making sure that we're targeting those to our neighborhood business districts of which downtown is, I would say, first among equals. Um, and so there will be targeted investments in businesses and in business infrastructure. There will be, I think we will see more and better programming, hopefully coming from the private sector. Emily can probably talk to that better than I can. So I think there's a lot of really tangible things that the city will be doing in terms of investment and implementation of plans. But also, again, I just want to emphasize that this is a partnership, right? This is something that everybody is going to be taking action on, including, I hope, all of you in this room, and that you will find ways to take action on the work that's being done in this strategy.
Emily, what benefits do you think DMI members and, but more importantly, the private community and the residents will see? Also, I think it's very important to note, again, Emily is a shared employee of Downtown Madison Inc. and Destination Madison. And that is a, if not the only one in the country, one of the only ones in the country. So what will the visitors, residents, and workers see benefits from this plan?
I think everything the mayor already touched on, for sure, there's going to be many benefits. And I think to get to another layer from what Jay started with, for the Greater Downtown Economic Investment Strategy, we do know that the recommendations that come out of that are going to be framed under 4 major categories. So it's going to be employment, housing, infrastructure and amenities, and then equity, inclusion, and belonging. So given those categories, we expect that a lot of these specific benefits that will come to businesses, employees, and residents and visitors are going to be, in addition to the ones the mayor have already said, things like workforce development strategies, small business support and creation strategies, business recruitment and retention. And then, under housing, we will think about things like generational wealth creation to avoid displacement. And under infrastructure, which is includes the public realm, there will be a whole range of things around making sure that everyone has access to necessary amenities like childcare, groceries, public space, but also looking really holistically at unique amenities that could be like cultural hubs, public art, outdoor rec, these types of things that really create an identity for downtown, which will be huge for recruiting businesses, for recruiting visitors, for quality of life for residents, as well as doing a lot of the kind of public realm improvement stuff that making sure our streetscapes are really connected, not only in downtown, but like how people are getting into and out of downtown. Making sure our sidewalks are accessible, all of that kind of stuff. MIG will be doing a really cool on-the-ground analysis, mapping lots of different layers of what our streetscape experience is that we're really excited about. So, and then for equity, inclusion, belonging, we really expect and will make sure that that's a lens throughout all the other recommendations, but kind of centering along things like economic mobility, equitable development, environmental considerations. So, all of these things are going to just make sure that we're creating a downtown that is really welcoming to visitors and also supports our local businesses, gets people on the street, gets people into businesses, and creates that quality of life that we can keep thriving as we grow. Do you have anything in addition to that?
Well, I think between you and the mayor, I think the benefits are sort of what we'd be addressing are hit well. I guess what I would add is, I think that oftentimes with whether it's a strategy, a plan, study, whatever it is, we try to be really comprehensive. And I think the response, well, you guys nailed it, but that was a lot of stuff. And so if we're thinking about being focused, if we're thinking about really having the maximum impact, we can't just spread the peanut butter all over downtown and expect maximum impact. So
Is that a legitimate strategy?
do you like peanut butter?
My dogs would love it.
And so
That was a terrible joke.
I think there's a piece of this where you're in such a place of strength because there are so many things going on. There's so many good things happening that there's a term I hear most often applied to like social services, but collective impact. And so it's looking at all these different actors, all these different players, and where's their overlap unnecessarily, where are their gaps, and how do we sort of manage the resources most appropriately and really point those to these places where we think are going to be most transformative, most catalytic. And that could be geographically, it could be industry based, it could be for certain populations. But that's going to be a piece of both of these efforts. And I think a really critical part of that coordination is making sure that we're focusing, that we're not just, trying to include everything just to make sure that we have this comprehensive scan. We're going to start there, and there will be a vision that is set that is more broader, that's guiding us, but the action, the specific recommendations will be very targeted.
Megan, sorry.
I forgot three things. I'm sorry. Just really quickly, I just don't want people to think that we're not paying attention to these things. So, three things. One, the top of state, right? We've got a planning process underway that will fold right into this.
Literally last night was a
Right?
public meeting.
Yeah. So, and then two, the work that we're doing, and this is not work that exclusively is happening downtown, but will have a huge impact on downtown, I hope, to create the state's first purpose-built homeless shelter out on Bertillon. And I mention that because that is another thing that has to be a public-private partnership, and that we need all of your help to make that successful so that it really will have all of the benefits that we hope it to have downtown. In particular, we really hope that that can be a 24/7 shelter for folks, and more on that soon. And then the third thing is public safety. And we continue to invest in public safety and will continue to invest in public safety on all fronts, including traffic safety, right? And that's something that we're very serious about and will continue to be serious about as a part of this. Because if you look at that map of the greater downtown area, there's a lot going on in that area. And it's not just State Street.
In the last few minutes, we have a last question for Megan and then for the rest of the group is, what role will the community play in shaping the vision and priorities for downtown, and how will their input be reflected in the final decision? And it's in a very important part of that question is, how will equity, economic mobility, and environmental justice be embedded into the planning process and resulting implementation strategies?
Yeah, thank you. Certainly, this is a big part of how we will proceed with this work. As Jay showed, as part of our coordination, this is a major part of what we want to be coordinated around as well. The community will absolutely have many opportunities to have a voice in this. I think we all in this room have an important role to play, but as the mayor said earlier, there are a lot of people that are not in this room that live downtown, that work downtown, that visit downtown, that may actually not come downtown, but want to. And so through both the development of the economic impact strategy and our long-term vision through the downtown plan, we'll be working to capture those voices. We always try to capture as many diverse voices as we can through these planning processes, and know that we're not always able to reach everyone that we intend to and would like to. And that's where I think some of this coordination is actually going to help us to be more impactful in that regard. I can let Jay and Emily speak to this more, but I'm really excited about having equity by design in this process, not only thinking about how we actually talk during the development of these tools, but then what those conversations can lead to in the future in terms of who has access to be part of downtown in the long term, not just telling us what they want, but how that actually manifests in opportunity for downtown. So this will be a major part. And I think, how those voices come together is always a big part of a planning process. Articulating what do we want to see for the future. I think those will be synthesized in a very public way in what Jay referred to as the big moves. And I think about this in a lot of ways as those priorities. The how do we make sure the peanut butter is on the right part of the bread? Helping us pull together what we're hearing from the community as needs, opportunities, hopes, and being specific about what we're actually going to do as a result. Because I think too often if we jam everything in there, people don't necessarily see the action as an outcome because we've given ourselves too much work. So trying to really prioritize what we are committing to doing as part of this, how we're going to do it, and then making sure that we're clear about how we're all going to marshal our resources to meet those priorities.
All right, I said that was the last question. I lied. Jay, you're from Appleton, Wisconsin, correct?
I sure am.
What's your favorite city in Wisconsin?
Madison.
All right, great. Huge thank you again to our panel and for all of you for joining us today. Let's give a round of applause to Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway, Megan Tuttle from the city's planning division, Jay Rankin with MIG, and Emily DeVore with DMI and Destination Madison. All right. Thank you again to our sponsors, Carlson, Black, O'Callahan and Battenberg, Ho Chunk Gaming, Madison, JP Cullen, Lake Ridge Bank, Urban Land Interest, the Fiore Companies, and the Edgewater Hotel. Thank you all for joining us. I hope we see you many times in downtown with full bellies and full shopping bags all this summer. We'll talk to you soon, and thank you for your support of Downtown and DMI.